Hi there. I'm going to apologize in advance. I've had a terrible cold, so I will try to not lose my voice or have a coughing fit or start crying after. First of all, I found this picture. I thought it would be appropriate. I am not a rampant feminist. My intention is not here to start the battle of the sexes all over again. But women and men entrepreneurs are a bit different, and I think it's worth addressing some of those differences as well as the many similarities. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to talk about women entrepreneurs tonight, courtesy of the Thai Institute. My reason for participating wasn't to make sure we had more women out, but to make sure that more women weren't benefiting from the Thai opportunity. So I'm really glad to see such a great turnout of entrepreneurs period this evening, and hopefully there will be a few insights for everybody. Anyway, I've been interested in this topic obviously for quite a while because I've been involved in this field for more than 15 years now. The first study ever in Canada on women entrepreneurs was actually done in the 1990s. I think I've misplaced my original copy of that study by the Bank of Montreal, so I don't have the exact date on it, but it was a market research study in the 1990s. And in fact, in 2003, there was a Prime Minister's task force led by a Toronto backbencher Liberal MP entitled Prime Minister's Task Force on Women Entrepreneurs, and that was dated 2003. And I remember attending a Women Entrepreneurs of Canada evening meeting on that Prime Minister's task force. And the MP who headed that task force, Sarmite Polte, was a lawyer and an entrepreneur in her own right. And she had been a founding member of Women Entrepreneurs of Canada, and so it was her home crowd. And so she told some of the backstories to the preparation of that report. And boy, did it sound like it was quite an adventure. They went to Stats Canada, and nobody had ever tracked women entrepreneurs, period. Nobody had ever asked the question. They have this, or they had for many years, this undeterminate work category. And it turned out that a huge proportion of women who were self-employed out there were in this giant indeterminate category. So there's no way of finding out information, okay? And the stories went on, and there were a lot of laughs, but that was a landmark study. And I don't know if people are aware, but I believe it was in January 2011 when the federal government finally allowed entrepreneurs to make contributions to employment insurance so that in the event that there was a huge downturn in their business or they had to get out of their business, that they would be eligible to receive EI. And that is one small thing, but very big thing for women entrepreneurs that came out of that particular task force. So this whole topic of women entrepreneurs in Canada, it's not talked about that often. There is an academic at the University of Ottawa who's doing a lot of work in this area. I printed out, I think, a 150-page summary of academic studies on women and men entrepreneurs in Canada, but I think that's it. Anyway, so my intention here is not to create any battles, but to let people know that this still is, unfortunately, a relatively new topic and that there are some differences. So I want to share some facts and the reasons why. So women are starting businesses at a higher rate than average. The rate that I've heard cited most often that began with that Bank of Montreal study in the early 90s that was considered a wow at the time was that women are starting businesses at twice the rate of men. Now that doesn't mean they're starting twice as many businesses, but they're working hard to catch up, okay? And women continue to do that. When you segment the startup population, women are continuing to start businesses year over year at a faster rate than women. Why is that? Well, I don't know for sure, but what I hear in my journeys talking to women entrepreneurs, businesses are often started by women who get frustrated with the traditional workforce. They hit that proverbial glass ceiling and say, you know what, enough, I'm doing my own thing. I think it has to do with women wanting more work-life balance and still having the bulk of household responsibilities. But I do know many men who make that choice as well, so that is, in fact, I was pushed back at really hard once, saying that that was only women who were doing that. But those are some of the trends, I think, that are driving this. The other thing is that 20, 30, 40 years ago, I know when I was in high school, this wasn't necessarily presented to me as a career choice. Isn't it wonderful that this is presented as a very valuable career choice to many people these days? It's still a fact that 47% of Canadian businesses have some degree of female ownership. About 19% of businesses have joint male-female ownership, but only 16% are majority owned by women. So there's still a lot of catching up to do. I usually make a joke there about divorce law, but people don't always laugh at that. Just to prove that my husband's a business owner, so he doesn't think that's funny at all. Just to prove that women are catching up, there are about 900,000 self-employed women in Canada. And I pulled that from a Barbara Orser interview with Profit magazine that was just before Christmas. I think it was November of 2011. So women are catching up. Women-owned businesses are smaller and slower growing. I don't like this number because, you know, the work that I do at the City of Toronto and at Enterprise Toronto, I don't segregate my programs. But when I see these numbers, I struggle with that. On average, women businesses are generating gross revenue of $563,000. Okay, whereas men, on average, are generating 1.1 million. So it's nearly half. Okay, but when you do a deep dive, there's an explanation. Women are more likely to be in service industries, and therefore they're not growing as big or as quickly because that's the rate of growth of those service businesses. Okay, so there are some reasons. The other thing is women are more likely to choose self-employment for lifestyle reasons than men. And so if your objective is to earn a full-time salary and have balance in your life, who's to say that you're more or less successful than somebody who's generating more revenue? And I feel very strongly that that is quite true. So women-owned businesses are still smaller and they're slower growing, but there are good reasons and women are catching up. One of the points that keeps on coming up in studies is that women entrepreneurs have more difficulty obtaining financing than their male counterparts, and that's one of the big reasons why I think participation in TIE by women entrepreneurs is a really important thing, because it's a program like this that helps women gain access to those networks and those financing opportunities. Again, the reasons for that are not because women are less capable of or less deserving of financing, but it's often because of the businesses that they are running. They may have less management experience, they may be at an earlier stage of growth, they may require less financing than capital-intensive manufacturing businesses, that sort of thing. But when you compare the financing that women and men are receiving, the interest rates, the credit terms, all of those things are exactly equal. So it's not a discriminatory issue. It really does have to do with the kinds of businesses that women are starting. Women do bring a different management style and a different set of values to the businesses when compared with men. And I love this photo. It's a girls' soccer team. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a big football fan. And I love watching women's football, actually, because, boy, they are not unaggressive. Anyway, women do talk about their objectives differently. And a number of years ago, I saw a study coming out of the States where a woman and a man who say, I want to own $1 million company, their businesses will be equal. But women and men don't always articulate their goals in those terms. A lot of definitions of entrepreneurship around risk-taking and leadership and things like that, a lot of that is very male-centered language, and women are more likely to talk about team leadership, empowerment, furthering social goals, these kinds of things. It's not a necessity. For those of us women who are type A personalities who don't communicate like that every day in our regular life anyway, I'm not about to change who I am, but when academics study women versus men entrepreneurs, they do find that women often articulate their goals in a different way. And that then leads to how they pursue their entrepreneurial dreams as well. But the real message that I wanted to deliver at the front end of the 4 presentations that you're going to see today is that women entrepreneurs do seek business growth, and they do have the same aspirations of their male counterparts when they do decide that they want to grow. Okay? So anybody in this room thinking, oh, I'm cut off because, women-led businesses are smaller than men-led businesses. Compare yourself with another clean tech firm or another tech company or a new groundbreaking innovation in a more traditional business. And if you've stated those goals for yourself, there's no reason why your business is not going to achieve the same outcomes as your male counterparts. So there are more similarities than there are differences. The definition of entrepreneurship still applies to men and women. The hardships, the struggles, the celebrations, the wins, the losses, all of those things are the same for men and women. So, in summary, things that I've heard over the years, and I found recently in some of this material that I was perusing from Barbara Orser, some of the things that women entrepreneurs may want to consider is to say it out loud if you want to grow. And say it out loud so people can hear it. And don't just say it to your girlfriends. There's some myths around women being fantastic networkers, and then there's other rumors that say that actually they're not really good networkers because they're not in the right networks. Well, apparently women are great at social networking, but they're not always, they're often in networks with other women and feel-good networks. Women need to get out there into the business networks and hang out at the Board of Trade and at TIE and at other kinds of associations where they can be rubbing shoulders with high-growth entrepreneurs. So if you want to grow, say it out loud and start acting on that vision. Do you have a viable growth plan? And I would put that in a list of considerations for any entrepreneur. Okay? It's worth hammering out that growth plan. And I actually consider that different from your startup plan. Getting off the ground is quite different often from taking your business to the very next level. So building a viable growth plan is really important, and women shouldn't forget about that. Do you have the right mentors and advisors in your network? I think that's important. Now, I don't want to rehash that networking session that we did, but I know there were some fantastic presentations there. But having the right mentors and advisors to take you where you want to go is important. And if there are fewer women entrepreneurs out there in your mentor network, make sure you get some men. Okay? Do you have the resources that you need to grow? Apparently women don't always stick their hand up for financing. They try to run a tighter ship. Men sometimes will take on greater risk when it comes to financing. Well, do you realistically have the resources that you need to grow? An interesting fact that I also read about was women's idea of control. Men believe, and I may not say this exactly right, but it was interesting, and I can certainly see it in my own world, but men like being in control of lots of resources, whereas women think that being in control is doing it all themselves. So sometimes women aren't hiring talent. Sometimes women are trying to finance from cash flow instead of going out and doing a super big pitch. Okay? Who was it I was talking to earlier who said that sometimes you have to put in your pitch that you want $2 million because that's what the investors want to see. Anyway, so do you have the resources that you need to grow, including talent and financing? Being in control is getting what you want, not necessarily doing everything by yourself. And I wanted to end this on a slightly inspirational note by, this list could have gone on forever and ever. But by pointing out some of the super smart women entrepreneurs just in the city that I've run across. And yes, Enterprise Toronto, we serve about 35,000 entrepreneurs a year, but there are about 215,000 businesses in this city. So there's a lot more smart women out there. Anyway, Renee Unger, how many people use Renee's salad dressing? Yeah, okay. She got private equity to grow her business. Rita Tsang, I want to get her as a speaker for Enterprise Toronto. That's a woman who doesn't look a day past 25, and apparently she has grandchildren. Anyway, she was apparently one of the very first tour companies to China. ever, run by a woman out of Toronto. Joanne Papari, Biochem Environmental Solutions. She's an engineer and runs a clean tech firm with Etobicoke. Marty Walker, she makes enormous contributions to the entrepreneurial community. She had a corporate career. She decided to take on a school bus business to serve children with disabilities. She is now teaching at the Rodman School of Business. She runs 401 Bay, which is an executive center / incubation space. And she's a prominent member of the Maple Leaf Angel Investors, and always willing to give back time. Sandra Wilson, Roos Footwear. I can't count the number of new babies in my family who've received Roos from me. People have Roos for their children, those really cute little boots and footwear. Oh, I don't know what happened here. Edie Wise, Radke Film Group. Toronto in the last 15 years has had a huge growth in the film industry. It's a huge sector from the economic development perspective, and she runs a production firm. She started out as a therapist. She got sick of it. She wanted to start a business, and she went to do something fun. And all of a sudden, she's got a big going concern, and has been a Woman Entrepreneur of the Year award winner. How many people have met Sarah Prevet from Sprouter? Yeah, another really smart woman in this town. I think Inc. magazine, Inc.com in the US, identified her 2 years ago as a top woman under the age of 30. She just sold her tech startup to a media company. And in fact, if you know about Sprouter, Sprouter.com is having their first Sprout up next week. And I don't know if you're like me, I want to see what the new iteration of Sprouter is going to look like, or if it's going to continue to have Sarah's energy. Leila Boujnani. People talk about the few tech entrepreneurs in North America, and Leila's one smart lady behind TinEye, which is I'm not going to explain the technology well to you because I'm not a tech person myself, but visual search engine. You have a picture of the Mona Lisa, she can find all the iterations on the net, the way Google can find words. She's co-founder of eDay Inc. Lauren Fries, another young woman behind Talentage. She's teaching large Fortune 500 companies how to recruit students in the age of social media. How about Tanya Sermon, the Center for Social Innovation? She's a social entrepreneur. How many people have had a Licks home burger at some point? But I really like the vegetarian ones that you can now get at the grocery store. Anyway, that's Denise Meehan behind that company. Or Cherry Tabb of the Herzig Eye Institute. She's the business brains behind that one. all the surgeons that you see on TV, she's the one who makes that business work. Julie Cole of Mabel's Labels. She's a lawyer and she has 6 children, and she's a co-founder of a very successful business. I can go on and on. Anyway, the bottom line is there are a lot of really smart women business owners. I expect to see many of you on this list here. I didn't put my co-presenters because I thought that would steal their thunder. But that's the end of my presentation, and I'll pass it on. If you're interested in talking to me, there are my contact details. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions for Katherine at this stage?
Not a question so much, Catherine, but you were talking about why women are entering the workforce now, starting up their businesses now. And there's one thing that struck me and that is the level of self-confidence of women today are much higher than they were 20 years ago. They have more of a sense of themselves and their abilities. At least that seems to be my experience in the past.
I think I would say yes. I think we should probably leave that to the women in the room to address that question. On a personal note, this is Catherine's opinion, not manager or City of Toronto. The first decision that I made at Enterprise Toronto, you can boo if you don't like it, but I canceled our women's seminar series because the seminars were all on assertiveness training. Okay, I was embarrassed because I've met a lot of feisty women. You know, think of that 3-year-old is dragging her mother along on a subway platform. I mean, there's a lot of feisty women out there. So, yes, I think women are coming into their own because it's an option and there's progress being made. But I think there's a balance, you know, that's required out there that I'm no longer interested in participating in women's business events where people are going to tell me how to become more assertive. I am much more interested in hanging out with women entrepreneurs that are working on growth. And from what I see, women out there are more interested in that as well. So again, I leave that to the room. That's my personal perspective on it. If you guys have a problem and want the Women's Business Seminar series back, please let me know. I do aggressively market to women, but I don't segregate my programs.
No, I understand it, but that is an example of what I'm saying. You don't feel that you need to, in effect, concentrate just on women's issues. And that didn't use that.
And I think my counterparts up here this evening will prove that we
Yes,
still lack
most
self-esteem.
Do you think that we should have a? Do you think that we should have mandatory number of women on boards of public companies?
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question, but back to my bullet about women have different leadership style and different values around leadership. There are lots of studies that come out of, is it Catalyst, I think, out of New York, that demonstrate that firms with a higher proportion of women in leadership positions and in boards actually are more likely to be successful, or I don't know if there's a direct causal relationship, but there seems to be a correlation in business performance. I'm not for assigning numbers and quotas and things like that, but at the end of the day, I think we're all interested in business outcomes, and that's where I like to look.